happy to be back here. Another episode of the Mindfully Curious podcast. My name is Steph, and I am the person that shows up to make this thing every week. Well, one of the few people, because honestly, everybody listening is certainly involved in making this happen. Even if you are thinking like, me, how? It is you. So thank you for being here. How did you like that super long intro beat? I had so much fun making this beat this week, specifically for this episode. And my inspiration was kind of the weekend that I have. I've been feeling a little bit, I'm gonna call it under the weather. Definitely physically feeling a little bit lower energy and mentally feeling like I really have to get my shit together and get to work instead of trying to give my body the rest it is asking for. Because otherwise, why would I feel tired? I mean, I am not the cleanest person when it comes to diet, but I do try pretty consistently to eat clean. And I mean, I guess there are always new levels that one can achieve in health and clarity, mental, physical, whatever. Therefore, with my awareness that my body was tired, I took it easy this weekend. Normally, I get a lot of my creative work done during the weekend, and not just my most creative work, but my most physical creative work. So normally on the weekends, I go out to my studio and paint on my really big canvas that I'm working on right now. It's like an 11 footer. So it's huge. It's like 11 by 7 or something. And it's really physical. So it requires a lot of just energy. And even though I'm super passionate about working on this, I really have to be honest with myself about how I feel physically and mentally and spiritually, honestly. So I was with all this extra time, let's say, in my hands. So I sat out and it was rainy. So I was sitting on the porch a lot while it was raining. And it's wild. I have noticed that birds are really active when it rains. Obviously not while it's raining, but if there are any breaks or when it stops raining, they are super out there. Like you'll see them flying, soaring, playing. And I figured out that after it's done raining, a lot of worms come out of the ground. I don't know why, like they get flushed out or whatever. And I've noticed the birds knowing that and just kind of waiting for that to happen. And then it's kind of like an all you can eat worm buffet. I mean, not really that bountiful, but there are a lot of worms. And I often see birds carrying worms in their mouth after a storm or like a little rain or whatever. So the birds were super active, and then next thing you know, there's a crow sitting by the compost pile, and it's frozen in the weirdest position, and it looks wet AF. That's a wet ass crow. So I continue to monitor this bird for the next 24 hours, and it didn't really stop raining until like hour 18th of that 18 hour 18 of that 24-hour period. And for a while, I was worried that this dude was more fucked up than I thought. And what I was doing to help it heal is just not letting my dogs go back there and giving it the space it needed to heal. So anyway, I think homeboy or homegirl dried out. My theory is that this was a baby crow because of the way it was acting. And it was cool. While it was waiting to dry, lots of crows would come and just hang out. And they would make so much noise. And yeah, this is a long story long, but that was my weekend. And this beat that I made was totally inspired by that. You'll hear the crows, you'll hear the birds. And listen, I am not a musician and I do not know anything about music except for I love it. So this might be total shit and your ears could be bleeding, and for that I apologize, but I think it's dope and I appreciate you bearing with me on my creative adventures. I also added breaths into that song because that way it could be a reminder that could help you tap back into your breath. And I don't know if that was the outcome that you had or if your ears were just like WTF. Because yeah, I also really, really love heavy bass. So of course I had to throw that in there. Anyway, today's episode, I'm so excited to share with you. Dan Olson is awesome. He's an artist, a mentor, an alchemist, a magician. He shares so much of his journey, and man, he's had a hell of a journey. Lots of adventures. And he gets to share a lot of his stories from his adventures. And what I think one of the most valuable things that came to me through this conversation was how awesome it is for every person that decides to create their own path, because everybody kind of at some point develops a toolkit. And like Dan will say, this allowed him to start asking better questions and really get to what he describes are truer truths, which I love that, because I think you can always re-engage the relationship with the present and make it what you love. And you guys have heard me say this a million times. The same neurotransmitter that makes one excited or feel excited is the same one that makes you feel anxiety. And according to the Flow Research Collective, it's all in the mindset. And I know that sounds like total bullshit, but it is available to us. And one of the biggest, most helpful tools for connecting with that is connecting with the breath. See how I brought that all full circle from the new beat to the gifts of the conversation? Haha, I am pretty proud of it. I am totally riffing off the cup fear, and I do have notes, but I hate looking at them while I'm recording because I get distracted reading them and then I just completely stop being able to speak. And that will stunt me for a good bit. So, notes, I write them beforehand, and then during, I just really don't like to use them. So, y'all are getting the truest truth of how I feel on the day I record these, and sharing my truthiest truth reflection on every single of these dope ass combos I get to share with you guys. And if you're thinking, where are the dogs? Well, I found a beautiful setup and I'm hoping it continues to work. However, these dogs adapt quickly, so I doubt it. But for today, they were really good, so we get what I can only hope is impeccable audio. Oh, impeccable, that's a good word. It kind of reminds me of Don Miguel Ruiz and the Four Agreements. The first agreement, be impeccable with your word. And that's what I'm talking about. Without further ado, here is a conversation with Dan. So once again, thank you so much for being here, Dan. I'm so excited to get to talk to you about so many things, but I just want to say that before we close this podcast, let's please touch up on Brothers of the Moon, I See Your Magic, and all of the other events you got going on.
Sounds good.
Thank you. And that being said, please tell us a little bit about how you got to be the magical person you are today.
Wow. Thank you. It's an honor to be here, and thanks for holding the space. How I got here. I think there was a lot of hardship that I was able to experience at a young age, and which brought a lot of confusion. There was also a lot of good stuff that happened at my young age too, but I was often, I think, unable to see it. Everything was so clouded by just like seeing people suffering, people like a lot of lack, a lot of anger, a lot of not enough, a lot of kind of people fighting over scraps. And I wanted just no part of it, but also like it affected me deeply. It made me like really angry as a young man. My parents had a pretty nasty fallout. They got a divorce, and I kind of felt lost in the shuffle. It's like, it was like I wasn't like left on the streets for dead or anything, but also like I didn't really see there wasn't people I didn't feel like my emotions were really cared for. And I had a little brother and little sister. I didn't really feel like their emotions were really cared for either. Like our needs were met physically, but I became like really kind of obsessed about like trying to make my brother and sister feel safe. And I realized I didn't feel safe. And I didn't have that cognitive ability at the time, but now I realize I didn't feel safe. And so I was like angry a lot. And that became a problem child, which led me to like getting shuffled around even more and like other institutions. And it's a lot of like, I don't know. I grieved, resented my father for the decisions that he made with my sovereignty at the time. But I realized that like, it was really hard for me to feel seen. I felt like I was always like never able to really show up in my life. And then I found all these things I really like wanted to do that were really scary for me. and I would like kind of shy away from them and only like do the easy things. And then one day I kind of like got through doing the easy things in my life in some ways, and I was like, wait, I'm like, I've been scared to like show up and like even try for the big stuff, and what am I doing? I should be like, seizing the day. And so I think that I always wanted to make people feel seen and make people feel safe and make people feel heard and make people like feel celebrated to some degree. And so I kind of made that like my quest. And I worked with a lot of, I really like working with artists because I wasn't an artist, but I wanted to like, help. So my job in advertising was to work between like the business salesperson and like the art department, and to synthesize the business problem into a design problem and then sell the design back to the business, right? And that was fun because I liked working with artists and I liked helping people feel heard. But then I realized I was not really being creative. I was just like criticizing creative, which was like, ugh, that's gross. And I think I was coming from a good place, but ultimately I was like, I was like making, I wasn't creating my own art and I wasn't contributing my own voice, but I realized I was trying to help others, like, you know, have their voice heard and put it in a way that other people could understand it. So I've always kind of been a mediator, but I've always really like loved people and spending time with people and like helping people see themselves. And then one day I realized that I just wanted to be a photographer. I was like my first love from being a kid, and it was like right under my nose the whole time. I just love like everyone's so beautiful, like every single body, like every person has like their own unique sparkle in their eye, or like just like a little wrinkle in their smile or something. And I realized I loved showing that to people more than I loved selling them, like, Nikes or whatever. And so I decided to just kind of put my eggs in that basket. And it was like it was so fucking scary. Oh my God. To be like, oh my God, I'm gonna make a photographer. I couldn't even like imagine people paying me for photos. But then I kept doing it and I kept kind of chipping away at it, and kind of also trying to help people with their branding and helping people like see themselves and put it and bring it forward, which is what branding really is, helping people see their own unique essence, and put like a tone of voice and some like, design thinking to it, and a little bit of a look and a feel. Ta-da! I don't do like the look and the feel. I work with another designer, but I help people say like, hey, this is what I want to have happen. And then, hey, designer, can you hear me now? And then the designer's like, oh yeah, I'm not actually the greatest communicator, but I totally see what you're going for. And how about this? And it just like speeds up the process. So I still love doing that. But then I realized that what I really loved doing was like just helping people like really see their hearts. It was at a festival like, I don't know, 5 years ago or something like that. I was like high on acid and started walking around like asking people if I could take their picture, and I just like loved every fucking minute of it. And after every picture I would like, or I had like an on-camera flash, and so I was just getting beautiful skin tones, and like I was like every time I take a picture, people would be like, oh my God, you look so good. And I'd be like, but then I started saying this thing, I was like, oh my God, oh my gosh, like, did you know, like looking at the camera all intently, and they'd be like, oh, what? And I would like put the camera in their face and show them this beautiful picture of themselves and be like, did you know you're beautiful? And they'd be like, oh. And it was just like such a lovely thing. It was like, it warmed my heart like twice as big as it did theirs, I'm sure. And I was like, man, I just want to fucking do this all the time. So that's kind of what brought me to here. And then last year COVID came on, and I was still like kind of fledgling with my, helping people see themselves business. I was like really scared of like, kind of like taking on like the magic side of things, and like even like being like, oh yeah, no, it's like, look, it's magic kind of a deal, but it is. And then I switched my Instagram name to I See Your Magic, and it was pretty well received. And then I printed all my business cards and cards on the back, so they're all different. And then like I was like, this makes sense, and this like resonates with people and it resonates with me, and like, whoa, like the magic started like unfolding. Anyway, I realized that there was a lot of people who were like struggling to see their magic in all sorts of ways, especially men. And having worked on like some construction sites in my life and things, and I know that like I haven't been the best partner in a lot of cases in my life. I think I've really tried, and I've like come from a really loving place, but I just wasn't very skilled, and I wasn't very aware, and I wasn't very conscious, and I didn't even really know what I didn't know. I still don't. But I'm asking more questions. And I was like, man, I just need like a brotherhood of students to kind of help me through this. And I went to some other men's groups, and they're so important, but I just didn't really like, they weren't resonating with me. You know, it was like, again, it was just like, well, this is like someone else's template. And I was like, I just got to do it. I feel like I just want to do it this way. And I talked to my friend Mitch about this men's group called Brothers of the Moon. Was a name that I'd come up with because I wanted to feel a little like, you know, like maybe edgy, maybe like a little bit like what, but also like, you know, the point of it was to like try to, as men, try to make space for the feminine in like our mothers, our sisters, our lovers, just our friends, like community members. But like also like it starts with making that space for us within ourselves. And so the moon represents this like this feminine thing, and this the brothers obviously is a masculine thing, but we just want to be advocates and allies for the feminine, and to allow ourselves to be a little more sensitive. And so we started this thing called Brothers of the Moon, and that was about a year ago this week, actually, was our first call. I know. So, and then, yeah, I've just been leaning into it even more every week. Like this, you know, I've been on a healing journey for years, but I feel like now it's all I want to do. And all I want to do is show people like how beautiful they are, and that they can see a healed heart somewhere in there and move toward it consciously.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing. And first, it just sounds like your magic is kind of like being this translator. Like you're translating, well, maybe like an alchemist would be better because you first started kind of turning adversity into advantage. And then through practicing that in your own life, you were able to kind of help other people be like, no, check this out. Where you think you see coal, look, it's some motherfucking diamond. So that is so cool and so beautiful. And wow.
I remember I was going, it was like 5 years ago. It was when Trump got elected, and like the whole world went into a great sadness. A darkness fell over the land. And in Portland, it had just snowed. This girl had just broken up with me. And I just felt like really lost. I didn't really know what I was doing. And I kept finding rainbows in puddles from like the little gasoline. And I was like, I just, you know, started like thinking about rainbow hunting, and like how we can find like these little iridescent, like beautiful little glimpses of, you know, God winking back at us, even in like the darkest and grossest places. They say every cloud has a silver lining. And yeah, I like to think every gas puddle has a little has a little iridescent rainbow in it. Um, but I thank you for pointing that out, because that is a lot of it. As I just want to, um, yeah, I want to eat darkness for breakfast and shit rainbows.
Hey, and you can eat the rainbows too, you know, it's just
Yeah,
like
truly.
open to whatever comes at you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it really is about like a little bit of alchemy, but it's also, yeah, just a little bit of like allowing, like we were talking about before, just allowing ourselves to see the good right there, right now, even though like, you know, I feel like I've just spent years trying to crawl out from underneath my narrative, trying to crawl out from underneath like my idea of who I thought I was or I was supposed to be, or like how life happened to me. And I'm still not out of the woods or anything, but it really, I don't know, it helps me on my journey to like lighten the fuck up and like see the little like, you know, try to find like joy in a little dewdrop in the morning or whatever, you know, just those little sparkles.
Might
They're
as
everything.
well take advantage of the free gifts that
Mm,
are out there in nature. The
mm,
cosmos is just, gifting us these little things like the moon. When it's full, it's amazing. And sometimes it looks more amazing than others. But
mm.
if you don't look up and give yourself the chance to see what it feels like to go out there and look at a giant full moon, you're never gonna know. And it's so much about that taking the chance.
Yeah.
And it's so cool that you can be a mentor of, hey, I've taken all of these different chances and look, like I'm still in one piece kind of thing.
Mm.
So that's really cool. Well, that's how I met you, is Brothers of the Moon. And I thought that was so cool. I was so taken away because I had been part of a conscious women's group for about 9 months before that chance of checking out Brothers of the Moon. And I thought it was so interesting the difference of the structure that y'all had compared to the structure we don't have in that group.
Right. That's the way of the dude right there. We want to bring order to everything. Well, I want that's actually my over masculine. I think that a lot of the guys in the group are sometimes a little bit like, why so much like structure? Um,
Oh my
but I think
goodness.
structure's like a pot for a plant. You know, like the plant is going to do what the plant's going to do, but ideally, I can give it like the right. You know, sometimes plants need like a terracotta pot. If you put them in plastic, they're not going to do so good, right? And sometimes like, you know, you got to like monitor the fertilizer and the nutrients and the water and the sunlight and all these things. So I don't know. That's part of like me trying to make a safe place for people. Also, it's trying for me to make a safe place for me, but also it's trying to make a safe place for people to feel like they can show up and like speak.
Man, that you are talking my language, man. Because so after attending the Brothers of the Moon, I was like, okay, I need to somehow bring some of this into every relationship that I have in my life. It's just like wave the rule book at them like right before and always keep reminding them, because that's the thing. As soon as I entered that container, I was like, "Oh my god, this is like super good. Like I know where I can go and where I can go, and with those clear rules, it's just so easy for my brain to just go everywhere because it's just kind of like when you're designing something. When you're making a brand, you don't choose 25 different colors. You pick like a
Exactly.
couple or
Right.
three, because that simplicity, creativity loves boundaries, and it's something that we don't really think is true because it's a paradox, but it does. And I really felt it through that container. And I just want to say that was bomb. So now you got like a
Thank you.
so I'm super advocating for rules everywhere, and not in a rigid way, because those rules are not rigid. They're rules that honestly you can use for like any area of your life. Would you mind sharing just like a quick cliff notes of what that is?
Yeah, yeah. I think I even have them up right here. So, you know, I think the thing that really like I think a lot of people really resonate with is the use of I statements. We're really about I statements because I statements help us take accountability for our words and we don't project on each other. And it's really easy for men, especially, to want to use our problem solving fix it brain to try to deduce, reduce, analyze, compartmentalize, and fix each other, right? But we're not here to do that, really. We're just like, we want people to get out of their analytical head for a minute and drop into their heart. So ideally, another part of the I statements is that we want to share from a lived experience, not from something we read in a book, not from something um, you know, that someone else told us or like that we know we should be doing, but really just like, hey, here's what it is for me right now, where I am. And when we're able to do that, it's a more powerful teaching tool, because the stubborn Taurus brain that I have in my moon is like, especially, and Aries, I'm just all sorts of stubborn and fire. I'm like talking to a brick wall. And I've had to really cultivate this like availability to like allow other like opinions and things in, but I'm pretty resistant most of the time, especially if someone's like, you know what you should do. I'm like, let me tell you what you should do first.
Not
Like,
tell me what to do.
yeah,
I hear
yeah,
that.
right. Um, and so it just doesn't like resonate for this generation. I feel like we like to like right now we're trying to like build on collaboration, right, instead of coercion. And so it's collaborative for us to all show up as students. And when we show up as good students, every student in the room instantly becomes a great teacher. And that's something we try to like really honor and celebrate with every room that we open. And it's twice a week for men on Mondays and Thursdays, for those of you listening at home, 6 o'clock. And yeah, I think that another important piece that we try to do is like also help people just, I mean, it sounds like silly, but we ask for permission to facilitate. And I don't think that a lot of us men understand how important and sexy consent really is. And so we ask people to ask for consent before like piggybacking or reflecting on someone else's share, just because also like it's okay to say no. Like, hey, this is actually just private and tender still, and I would just like, I appreciate it, but you know, right now it's a little delicate and I could use just a little more time. Thank you for letting me share it though, right? And so we want to just open up space and like give room. So that's a big part of it too, is yeah, asking for permission. And then we also ask for permission to facilitate, like I said, but having the people in the group also ask for permission from each other is a really beautiful thing. And
Yes.
so like I've noticed that seems to like help people bond too. It's like they form because now they've talked to each other, right? And like they've asked, it's like there's a reciprocal thing happening instead of just like this transactional thing. It becomes much more interactional.
Yeah, I think that's really how we build relationships, is by, like, you don't build a good relationship by being like, get over here, or by like telling
Right.
somebody like, this is what you're gonna do. Like, that's not how you build any, I would call it a good relationship.
Mm-hmm. But
Because,
also,
yeah,
sorry.
no, 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 go ahead.
Well, I was going to say it doesn't help us, it doesn't help them hear us when we tell them how to do it, but also like moreover it doesn't change their behavior, right? And if we're trying to help someone actually make changes in their life, or even more important, understand like what we expect of them, we have to be very clear about what those expectations are and say it in a way that gets them to be like, oh yeah, I can work with that, you know. And so I think that helps. It lets people, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's so great. And I just want to make an analogy of, that's kind of something I felt with the relationship between me and my body. Before, when I knew, hey, you gotta work out, you gotta eat healthy, you gotta do this, you hear me saying you gotta, because
Mm,
in my mind, I know these are all the things that a human body needs to be healthy and have longevity and good quality of life. But when I'm telling myself you gotta, I'm not asking myself, do you want to eat healthy? Do you want to exercise? Do you want to love your body? Because the thing is, if I had given myself the chance to reflect on that by asking, I would have just opened up the channel to think, how do I feel?
mm,
And that's something that I feel we don't do enough. It's just feel.
man. I got an interesting story I want to share with you about this idea of the power of asking questions is so phenomenal. And yet we go through life telling people how to be. So one time I was walking in. I was living in Portland, Oregon, in North Portland, in a neighborhood that had long since been like gentrified and reconstituted. Um, and I was walking home one night, and it was the day of the Kentucky Derby. So I was looking like an especially like white kind of white boy, right? Because people dress up in like bright colors and pastels and big hats on that day. I was at a Kentucky Derby party, which I never go to those fucking things. So it was like, why? I was like, okay, I'll try this time. Anyway, I only had to walk like 3 blocks from where I got dropped off. But on the way home, this this man stopped me in my tracks, and started um, basically just yelling, "I hate white people" at me. And he was a very large man, and he seemed like he wanted to fight. He wasn't letting me pass him on the sidewalk, and I didn't know. And I'm a good talker, but I was like, I kept trying to make these points. Like, no, man, like you don't like that's not me. And he was like, she's like, shut the fuck up. I hate white people. I was like, wow, okay. I'm like this guy is obviously like, up, and he's not appreciating me, even though I'm like literally a block away from my house, not even that, half a block. And he was under the influence of like maybe a drug or alcohol, but also like some like rage or some anger, and like he had the right to feel that way. And but all this, and I have been from Stockton, California. I've been jumped a few times, and so I was like, oh boy, here I am again. So I had my hands up, kind of like being like kind of backing up, and this guy had his hands up, like he kind of was like wanting to throw fists. So I was like, okay, what's going on here? And I have some martial arts training, but I feel comfortable in my body, but I didn't want to like mix it up with anybody by any means.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was telling him the same. I was like, hey man, I just live right up here. I'm not like that. He's like, I don't. He's like, I was like, I'm not like a homeowner here. I have like roommates. He's like, I don't. And he would say something like, and this was all like really fast. He's like, fuck you, I got a gang. And I was like, no, I'm not trying to escalate.
Oh my
Like,
God, that's
trying to
funny.
de-escalate. But anyway, like I realized like after like maybe 3 or 4 tries of trying to be like, hey, no, well, it's this way. No, it's this way. And him just not having it. I finally like was like, I hear you, man. What can I do? After he said, I hate white people again at the top of his lungs here late at night. Hey man, I hear you. What can I do? What can I do? And it was so disarming for him. He was like, it was the strangest thing ever to see this person all of a sudden kind of like come back to their senses, because they started asking themselves, yeah, what is the solution here? Anyway, he backed up a little bit and like barely let me pass by, but I could tell he still wanted to clock me. But he also was like, yeah, you're right. Like I could see him being like, oh yeah, like this isn't like, you know, I got home, but it showed me really like impactfully and potently the power of like asking someone, tuning into someone, how they feel, instead of telling them what they should believe that they don't know, right? Instead of trying to change someone's perception with like my mic drop, just like try to like connect with someone on their like in their heart. So anyway, like that's a lot of what I think is happening now with my work, but also it's like, well, I think we need to happen a lot more with like child raising. I think we all have like really traumatized relationships with our family members because they were taught to lead by authoritarian coercion, right? And we're seeing the effects of that in the way we like police each other now, the way we try to like, it's just all judgment and like fear, and not a lot of like allowing people the benefit of the doubt. And so I think with our children especially, if we ask them and give them choices and ask them about their feelings and say, hey, what do you think about us going here or this way, I think that really enables a lot of autonomy and a lot of sovereignty, and something that we can do for the people that we love in our lives also, because we're just babies, man.
Hell yeah. And you can do that with yourself. And I'm just so excited to see what the world is going to be like in 20 years, because all of that work that, we're putting in is gonna pay off at some point, just like you plant a seed and at some point something grows. So we'll see.
That's right.
I'm excited. I'm very
I heard,
excited.
I heard someone yesterday tell me about a type of bamboo that grows. And he said that when you plant a bamboo seed of this type of bamboo, the first year you have a bamboo seed, second year you have a bamboo seed, third year you have a bamboo seed. But at the seventh year, you have a plant that grows at about 36 inches per week. So patience, perseverance, humility pays off.
And I feel like that's creativity. It's a skill that you practice and you practice, and you think you're just like, oh, I'm just, taking some photos, pretty cash. I'm just painting with watercolor, pretty cash. But then when you apply what you learn through the practice on a bigger level, then you go, oh shit, it's a multiplier.
Yeah, totally. And then the weird thing about that too is our frame rate perspective, right? Because we don't even see ourselves getting kind of good at something. We just see ourselves like kind of like fumbling through it all the time. And then we're like, that's kind of good. Oh, that's fine. It's not like what I had in mind. It's never what we have in mind. Sometimes, right? Unless we allow it to be what it is. But if we try to like, expect something out of it, that's when art becomes design.
Man, I love that you said about what you said about what we want it to be like. Like, how do we allow ourselves to just do the thing and not try to push through something? And I just want to relate that to photography, because I feel like that is what makes a good photographer, which, if anybody wants to see good photography, please check out his website. If you feel like you don't take good photos or you just don't know what you would do in front of the camera, definitely talk to Dan, because that's his specialty. So, how do you? I know we're kind of running out of time, but I do want to ask, how do you approach being able to tap into what kind of pose or outfit or scenery or whatever I'm going to do with this client?
Mm. Yeah, there's man, that's a good question, because so much of it is like I realize I'm like not really I'm not the director like I thought I was. I'm really a co-creator at best. And when I can allow spirit to show me the shots, that's when I'm like in it. But kind of like we have to allow people to come to that space with us where they can be, because I try not to pose people very much. I'll say like, I'll give them like, tell them about like bringing a shoulder forward or be a contrapposto, making some angles. Actually, I probably give a lot of fucking direction, but I
Which
think
is not
people,
a bad thing.
yeah, but I'm also like we're just trying to work with what we got all the time. And I think that that's really what it comes down to, is like, we have to know our assets. We have to know what it is we're working with. We have to know where the light is. We have to see like how it's working on people's face, how they feel in their body. It's like so many things happening all at once. But I think the most important part is to like invite people into their body I make people dance with me a lot when because like just people don't live in their hips. They live like, like very tight in their shoulders, right? And so like getting them to like do something that looks even a little bit normal and casual is kind of difficult. So helping people do some breathing techniques, even some meditation sometimes. And then, but like having people dance, and also like having people do, and I realized just in a few shoots ago that I'm like, actually I have to be an embodiment facilitator on these projects, and actually ask people to like open their solar plexus and like drop their shoulders and like, let's roll them out now. Okay, now like really get them in there. Yeah. And like get the juice going. And most people don't do that very often. I love ecstatic dance. You just had Tiffany Mertens on the other day. Like, oh man, that girl can get down. Love dancing with
I
just
love her
anybody.
prompts. Like, her
Yeah.
prompts just, it's like stuff that I would have never thought about. But I was like, yeah, okay, I can see that. All right, let's do this. I love it. Love it. Love
Yeah,
it.
she's got a special kind of magic for sure. Um, and yeah, I think that when we allow ourselves to be in our bodies, people can actually, we can relax and allow ourselves to be, and relax and allow ourselves to be, we actually also allow the world to come to us. And if we allow it to come to us, like in art, they call it the transparent eyeball in the art world, right? You've heard that? Like, you just like let it kind of like flow over you, and don't try to like, don't reach for it, don't grasp for it, don't try to compartmentalize it, but just like allow, and alchemize and transmute and transform it into like with your being. And that's where like the kind of like the cultivation of the creativity, I think, really happens, is in this like the listening and the active response being at one. And that's really the dance of the masculine and the feminine. The feminine is the oracle that hears, takes in the divine inspiration. She's the muse, the ocean, all these things. And the masculine is like this active thing that wants to like play and generate and basically to take the mission into action, right?
Yes, yes, yes. And it's funny because people say creativity is a feminine force, and it's like, well, no, inspiration is, but creativity is exactly the mix of inspiration and perspiration. And
Mm,
you really, there's like a thing out there that says it's 1% inspiration and 99 perspiration. I do not believe that's true. Maybe for the person that said that, I think everybody has their own different lever and they can manage it however. But yes, it really is a dance of two paradoxical energies, The like if you have two magnets and you have two different poles, like you're gonna feel it kind of wanting, like repelling each other, but there's always like that perfect spot where it's like, oh, you can just keep it there. And it's like literal magic.
yeah. Yeah. So then the next part of the magic then kind of take us full circle is we have to like get really deep down to our own root, to our own like alchemical, like what is like what's happening with like my nucleus, right? What's happening in that subatomic energetic thing that's making the torus in my body, that is the battery that is constantly creating regardless of if I'm aware of it or not, but it's bringing in good or it's bringing in bad, right? And it's all because of like this small fundamental energetic polarity that might have some like other stuff attached to it, right? And maybe it's just like kind of needs to go through a centrifuge and get kind of like back to its like normal. I don't know what the
Car
name.
wash that bitch.
Yeah. That's it.
Get the bird poop from the journey off of it, so it
Mhm.
doesn't like fuck up the aerodynamics or whatever.
Yeah.
I gotcha. I gotcha, man.
Yeah, yeah,
It's so
exactly.
true. Great analogy.
Yeah, so and that's what we really like, that's where we find partnership and relationship with all these, not only the people but all the things and like our creativity, for example, right? But getting creative makes us actually face that part of ourselves. And I think in like writing is a big part of that too. People like are like, oh, everyone wants to write until they actually have to put pen to paper and see their thoughts and then try to edit them. And they're like, oh my God, I don't even can someone else do this part for me? That's how I was for so many years.
Same.
And you know um Mark Samuel Clemens said, I don't know what I think until I write it. And I feel like I don't know, I feel like I don't know what I believe until I edit it.
Man, that's powerful. And if you give yourself an infinite timeline or, the finite timeline that our lives is, that's all the time you got to keep making edits. So have fun.
Yeah, go get them.
Yeah, y'all got this. I know it. I believe in you. I'm right here for you.
Yeah, yeah, it is a journey, and it takes courage, and it takes love, and it takes courage to love.
Fuck yes. Yes, 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 yes. Love is the only fuel that will take you anywhere you need to go. But
Mhm.
also, it's the only one that only works when you're being 100% fucking honest with yourself. So,
Yeah.
again, I believe in us. I believe in us. We got this.
Yeah. I just a quick note on the power of love. Shout out to Huey Lewis in the news. But I had such a fucking chip on my shoulder, just like, through my 20s, into my 30s. I did everything was like a whole lot of fuck you attitude, and like a lot of like, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me, fuck you, I'm going to show you, like no, my will to power, and like like, oh, you just like couldn't, I just didn't want to be held down, you know. And I did some things. I did some like pretty amazing things. The fact that I even like was able to go to college, you know, do like half the shit I did from like where I came from is like a testament to will. But I broke down. I just couldn't use that fuel anymore. I was sputtering out, and I was like, why am I not? And it was because like I didn't really know, once I got to like where I wanted to go, and I was like, time to shift into love mode, and like, okay, like now like receive it and like work with it. All I knew was kind of like piss and vinegar. And not really all I knew, because I've always been a pretty happy and pretty loving person, but I didn't really know how to tap into the driving force that is love, that is self-love, right? Our first Brothers of the Moon was, what is self-love and how do I do it? And I think that I probably just like come back to that once a month. It's so important for me to get to where I'm going with love power, and not like that shit burning oven.
Yep, and not just you, man. I really feel, in my personal experience, likewise, and to anybody, even me, if I could like time travel to the past, I'd be like, love, dude, it's the only way. Like everything else you try, it's not gonna be fulfilling, because it's not,
Mm,
it's just not.
yeah.
So, Dan,
And tapping into love frequency, that's the next episode.
hell yeah, we definitely gotta do this again. Absolutely. Love this conversation. Love Brothers of the Moon. Love you, man.
Love you
And
back.
thank you so much. And where can people find you? I know you do a clubhouse too, so let's just make sure we touch on
Yeah.
that real
All
quick.
right. So you can find me on Instagram at I See Your Magic. That's a website also, iseeyourmagic.com. You can find Brothers of the Moon on Instagram as well at, you guessed it, Brothers of the Moon. And then we have no website, but our URL, brothersofthemoon.org, is a permanent link to our Zoom rooms that open on Mondays and Thursdays at 6 p.m. PST. So if you ever feel like you want to just come by and see what some guys are doing, it's, we have like so many people coming through. It's always like changing, and it's always moving, and it's always metamorphosizing, but that's the place to catch us. So 6 p.m. PST, brothersofthemoon.org will link you right into the Zoom room. But the portal's only open for 10 minutes, no laggards, okay? Because we're trying to create a safe place. So if you're not
Hell
there for
yeah.
the rules, you're SOL.
Yes, I love that. And create safe space you do. If you guys are at all curious about anything we talked about today, please make sure you connect with Dan or myself. We love talking. So
Yes, indeed. Absolutely. Oh yeah, and I'm on Clubhouse. There's a Clubhouse group called Brothers of the Moon. And right now that's really just kind of, we explore karma every Thursday. I interview this yogi named Rishi Chidananda. He's a practicing monk in New York City, and just a wealth of knowledge, and has been one of the things I like, one of his quotes that he says often is there is one truth, and the wise speak of it in many ways. And Gandhi also said, like, at the root of every religion lies the heart of God. And I really find a lot of solace and comfort and joy and contemplation in all of them. And karma is one of the oldest, ideas. So it's a fun one to explore.
yeah, really good room. Been part of it a couple of times and highly recommend.
No, thank you. Yeah, love having you in there.
Yeah, Dan, thank you so much again. So nice to see you. So nice talking to you.
It's been a real pleasure.
I hope we get to do this again sometime.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Dan. Have a